In Season 2, Episode 9, we shared a brief clip from Dr. Harrison Green's story of finding her father. Now we share the whole story. Enjoy and share your own stories with us in the comments or via email. Leave a like, share, and subscribe to help others find our channel to access more great content like this.
When I was a little girl, I used to tell my friends my dad was a chief. Not like a police or military chief, but a chief on an Indian reservation. I would describe him with a traditional headdress, tall, strong, brave, and handsome. He was responsible for protecting the reservation and all the Native Americans who lived there. But the truth was, I barely knew my dad. He left when I was 3, and my mom didn't talk about him much except to say that he was part Native American and his family never liked her because she was dark-skinned. So I made up my own version of who my dad was. The truth didn't seem as exciting as the stories I invented. I told these stories to cover for him when he didn't show up at my track meets or music recitals or father-daughter dances. Now, my mom was there, but all my friends had dads or father figures around. So I said, well, my dad is important. He has to take care of the people on the reservation. When I got older, I grew curious about who my dad really was. And after a very long time, my older sister helped me to find a way to write my dad. So I started writing him letters. Hey, Dad, it's Danielle. I'm doing really well in school. Write me back. But he never did. So I thought maybe he needs stationery. And so I would send him paper. Then I thought, well, he probably doesn't have stamps. And I brought stamps with my allowance, and then I sent those too, but still nothing. Then one summer in Philly when I was in 8th grade, my cousin asked me, after explaining how much I wanted to see my dad, do you want to go see him? And I was stunned that she knew where he lived. So one day we just got up one morning, we told no one, and we took this very, very long walk to find my dad. When we finally got there, the door was open to his home, and I saw a man sitting at the dining table and a tall man that was approaching us, and I knew right away that was my dad. My cousin yelled, "Hey, Uncle Johnny, I brought your daughter." He patted me on my head, said hello, and he walked out the door to work on his car, sliding underneath the vehicle. I didn't know what to feel. Does he not like me? Is he annoyed that I found him? I'm not mad that you didn't write me back, Dad. But I walked behind him and started to chatter, leaning over the car on my toes, talking to him through the car's engine as he continued to fix whatever it was. I don't remember what we talked about. I just remember being happy to hear his voice. My grandpa, who was also there, looked at me and said, "Yep, you're my grandbaby. I know a Harrison anywhere. I look just like my dad. My eyes, my lips, my nose." My grandpa handed me a water ice from this water ice stand he owned, and suddenly I felt a connection to something bigger than the stories I told myself. After that, my auntie continued to help us stay in touch. My dad started calling more often. Although the phone calls were awkward at first, they became easier for both of us. I struggled between feeling happy that I had access to him and frustrated that I didn't know him and sad that I missed all of the things little girls should have had with the presence of their dad, and protective because he seemed so vulnerable, but Johnny was back. And when I graduated from high school, he was there. By then, I stopped telling people he was a chief on an Indian reservation, and luckily, most of my friends didn't remember that story. When I was pregnant with my 3rd child, my dad moved in with me to start his life over. We had been chatting on the phone for weeks, and I could tell that life was really difficult for him, and I wanted to be there for him. And after weeks of convincing my dad, he finally took a leap and came to live with me and my husband and our 3 children. He became the best grandpa, helping my kids with math, telling corny jokes, and teaching them how to cook, although he was horrible at it. He even taught my daughter how to plant food, although he didn't quite calculate how much land he needed to plant pumpkins. We lived in the hood, mostly concrete, so watching these pumpkins bust through this concrete was like a scene in Jack and the Beanstalk. What memories. But he was present. I finally felt like I was getting the dad I was imagining to have, and my kids was getting the grandpa they deserved. For years, no one talked about his absence. I think I was scared to bring it up because I didn't want to know that he didn't love me or didn't think of me. And I know he didn't want to initiate that conversation for fear that I would learn too much more about who he was and the secrets he held. But one day I asked him why he left and ran away from us. And he said, I ran because I thought you were better off without me. I had nothing to offer, no job, no home. I was a mess and I didn't want to be a burden. And he cried. It's the first time I ever saw my dad cry. He said, I've always loved you and your sister and thought of you often and am proud to call you my daughter and to have the chance to see you grow into my wildest dreams. And I waited nearly 30 years to hear that. Yep, it's true. He was just an ordinary man fighting lots of demons and secrets and shame. He said he was blessed to have a daughter who gave him a second chance, and I loved every moment of it. In 2005, he passed away. I was angry when he died. I felt like he left again, and it took me a while to reconcile losing him twice. At 51 years old, I'm at peace knowing that for those 14 years, Johnny was home. I'm always wondering how many dads are on the run and how many little Danielles are out there somewhere creating a story about who she imagines her dad to be. My dad was brave in his own way. He was a runner, but definitely brave enough to come back and fight when it wasn't easy. And even though my dad wasn't a chief on an Indian reservation, he will always be a chief to me.